All right, welcome back. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Phil Burgess. Phil has over 22 years of UX research, design, integration, and consultancy experience. Phil has led very successful UX research efforts for General Motors, American Express, Overstock.com, Azurian Insurance, and more recently, New Skin Enterprises. Phil holds a BA in psychology from the University of Central Florida, and he's a certified Scrum Master, a Nielsen Norman UX certified. He's a Nielsen Norman Group UX certified. He's Nielsen Norman Group UX Management certified, and he's a User Zoom Advanced Practitioner certificate. And he has the User Zoom Advanced Practitioner certification. Please welcome your next speaker, Phil Burgess.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noah, and thanks to the Human Factors Institute for inviting me. I've been a long-time follower of Dr. Schaefer, and his work has greatly inspired me. As Noah has stated, my name is Phil Burgess. I'm currently the Global Enterprise UX Research Manager for a health and beauty company. I've got 20 plus years of research experience, started out as a qualitative researcher, and then really worked heavily into the quantitative researcher. Some companies don't have a dedicated researcher and rely on UX design, but some benefits to having a dedicated researcher are they can, help with the quantitative facts and put the puzzle together. I've seen a consistent and pervasive mindset throughout my career regarding how the business perceives and values UX and research. And, as researchers, I wanted to formulate some core beliefs. I have to remind myself why I'm doing this job constantly. A lot of times political bickering and battles take place in an organization, but I had to develop a set of core beliefs. And I developed these and, I share these all the time, but as UX professionals, it's our covenant to provide the most intuitive and usable pages and digital products. We truly believe our job is never completed and everything needs to be continually iterated. We believe that not addressing current user pain points on our sites and apps goes against our core beliefs. We owe a lot of covenants, but the most significant personal covenant we owe to ourselves is to be proud of the sites and apps we've designed. We may have these covenants, but often the business doesn't know, understand, or utilize UX and UX research to its fullest. Many organizations, the UX team is that of highly tuned, efficient, and powerful Ferraris being parked in a garage and not allowed to be driven or do their jobs. Instead of using UX and research to its full capacity to bring forth their effective and efficient Ferraris, some companies view and rather drive a used, broken down 1974 Pinto station wagon to get UX research and UX done. Instead of using UX and research to its fullest, uncover and recover millions of dollars in lost transactions just to fixing the usability of site. Many companies don't know how to leverage this that way. UX can add more transactional monetary ROI than creating any feature, solution, or new digital offering. So let's clear up some misconceptions about UX research and some common perceptions that I've heard and seen through the years and dealt with. Again, these are based on my experience and with working with numerous companies. These are a few misconceptions that I've noticed in the past. Probably the most significant two misconceptions about research is it's a nice to have. UX research only does usability testing. I've heard that one so many times. I actually had a CEO tell me that he used to do UX research in his early days. He said that he did a usability test with 2 of his family members and it was easy. So as we know, that's not, a significant, 2 family members, maybe a little biased, I don't know. UX research is only qualitative and a soft science. Incorrect. There's so much quantitative data and analytics you can find through research. It isn't a soft science. It's not a how do you feel? Well, that's the qualitative part, but it goes so much deeper than that. UX research is an impediment, takes forever to conduct a study, and there's no way research can be used in Agile. Absolutely false. And the one that really gets me, it provides no tangible monetary return on investment. I noticed that a UX researcher would be let go before any designers. So I set out to actually prove my worth. And again, I assert that very few people truly understand and appreciate UX. There are some misconceptions, but there's also some truths. UX research is a must-have. After proving my ROI process, the business deems UX research to be one of the most critical positions in the company. I know that for most designers can do research, and it's often left up to them to do the design and testing. User research and usability testing is but only one research method. Some UX research are equally adept at both qualitative and quantitative research. We are unicorns, but we do exist. If your company fully utilizes UX research or even has a UX researcher, kudos to you. If the researcher provides and documents the ROI of usability, then congratulations. It's been my experience that any conversion rate efforts are normally somebody else's job or someone else's thing to do. But make no mistake about it, billions are lost, left on the table just with poor usability of sites. So just a couple of numbers. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of this. The number and stats that point to the power of UX are undeniable. The most shocking statistic was the number of dollars lost to poor UX. Approximately 7 years ago, I understood that to be viable, valued, and employed as a dedicated UX researcher, I had to prove that I can increase revenue by fixing UX and usability issues. Based on all these numbers and the research I undertook, I aim for a target monetary ROI. So before I created the process and plan, I had a set number in mind on what I wanted to see in terms of dollars coming in. My initial goal was to aim for 5% increase in usability for one pain point within our site and process and increase revenue by $50 million. That sounds outlandish. I completely understand. But I could not have done this without the insight and information from the human factors, ROI calculators, and inspiration from Dr. Susan Weinscheck's video on the ROI of UX. Simply by identifying and fixing these problems, we can create better UX experiences and increase monetary ROI. For any naysayers, and I totally get you, I created a systematic plan and method that was tested, tweaked, and retweaked repeatedly. So after a few years and many attempts, iterations, and refinements, I finally created a sustainable, realistic, and proven plan to increase monetary transactions by fixing poor UX and usability issues. This was through a methodical data analysis to understand how improvements can be measured. And again, you have to be quantitative and qualitative in your approach to this. I had to jump through so many company political hoops and defended so many experts, and I had to soothe everybody's inflated egos. Getting buy-in from the business was the most challenging task by far. These research methods and processes include methodical documentations, meeting with different teams, and ensuring I had sign-off for everyone involved. I won't go deep into the process, but I've ensured every aspect of the business, UX, qualitative and quantitative research were integrated for analytics and ROI calculators in quantifying the monetary return on investment. I guarantee to increase transactions by at least $2 million in the first year if my company allowed me to engage with this process and leverage UX. At the end of the year, the results turned out to be a lot more than $2 million for the first year. Whenever I'm asked to consult with other companies, I guarantee that I can increase revenues by at least $1 million a year by fixing usability issues on their sites and apps, if they at least have some tools and are engaging in e-commerce. So you do not have to have all of these tools and processes in place, and there are very cost-effective ways to conduct this research. Again, this process involves qualitative and quantitative UX research expertise, and is predominantly rooted in extensive UX research. So I got really carried away with this, and I put this on paper, and I named it ROI to rollout, which is return on investment to rollout. Following up on the method, this is the kind of system that I outlined. So I basically outlined all the measurements, and before I get too deep in this, I want to tell everyone these are all quantitative, but we always do a usability test first just to make sure we're on. But these are some of the quantitative UX research analytics that we use. And again, this is a methodical process, and we vetted everything to the best of our abilities. These methods are interchangeable, and you can use just a couple to calculate and document ROI. As a UX researcher, I had to rely on UX my core competency does not lie in that area. So you have to use UX design. Thank goodness for UX design. I also created a skills matrix for UX folks based on their experience or non-experience with the tools. I labeled these titles or skills as reliant, verbalizing, identify, and solve. Based on the skill level and classification of the user, we also group them in how they need to go about quantifying an ROI on their own and how they should interact with research depending on their skill level. Since we are a global company, we had to do a lot of training international. We had to train a lot of teams on this. So it would help if you had a UX researcher that could do both qual and quant. But in the end, a lot of UX teams can do this on their own. And to be clear, this type of research and analysis is a longer term process and should never be considered as part of a sprint to identify all this stuff, but it can be done. Rubber meets the road. So after I got buy-in and accounted for all departmental concerns, and I created my first project, I've noted the steps and actions in here, so you can also set out on your own to fix usability issues and increase transactional revenue. So, step one, identify those pages that you believe are usability problems. You can do this through analytics or just a hunch. Being usability conscious, we all know and understand what's lousy usability. I initially started checking random pages and sections that may impact conversion rates. So I choose this page. This page is actually the first page that users see when they create an account with the company. And right away, as usability professionals and experts, anybody could see this is not a good page. So my step two, annotate or document the usability issues. I annotated the perceived usability issues and conducted a very mini heuristic evaluation on the page. This short evaluation gave me plenty of areas and opportunities to fix. So again, I documented some of the usability experts. You don't have to be a subject matter expert in usability, but some of the things that really stuck out. And again, this is the first page the user sees that we're creating an account. There's red font immediately. It's just yelling at the people. It's ominous and bolded font, basically saying you don't know what you're doing. There's verbiage like navigate. What does navigate imply? What does it mean? And they use the term ADR consistently throughout this welcome page, but nowhere in this does it explain what ADR is. So this gave me plenty of areas to fix. And next, I wanted to validate my heuristics using behavioral heat maps. So if you have a behavioral analytics tool, then great. If you don't have one, you continue without this. Tools like Hotjar, Lucky Orange, and Full Story provide a look at how users are using your site and interacting with your pages. So I looked at the behavior in all three environments, desktop, tablet, and mobile, using the page I wanted to fix. I started seeing an alarming trend, lots of rage clicks on the text that's not hyperlinked or actionable. I also noticed that users were exiting the page at a very high time rate. After looking at the behavior, I concluded that users are confused, frustrated, and reaching out to the call center on how to proceed. So I knew I had chosen the correct page and showed that this page was very high traffic. It's critical at usability and frustrated users. For anybody that doesn't know behavioral analytics tools, the brighter the area, the more traffic goes to that area. So on this page, on the desktop, tablet, and mobile, when I was doing click map, I noticed all these are clicks on the static text. And the deeper blue clicks are rage clicks. So I knew for a fact that this page wasn't doing very well. So step 4, you got to benchmark the current page and metrics using analytics if you have them. Look at the current metrics for the page. We use Google Analytics. I look at the bounce rate. The bounce rate is the percentage of single page sessions where there was no interaction with the page. A bounce rate session has a duration of 10 seconds. As you can see from the global bounce rate, this page is extremely high with an overall bounce rate of 61%. Also look at the time on the page and the general page views. My favorite metrics are return frequency and retention to see if users are getting through this page, if they have to come back a lot, to try to figure it out. So I documented and used these metrics to establish a baseline of the current page's performance. Once I had this baseline, I'll use the information to compare it to the new page and see how this is performing. At this stage, we already conducted a usability test to validate the data we have. Behavioral analytics, we've looked it up through Google Analytics. And as you know, we're documenting our process as we keep going. So we want to make sure we validate it both with qual and quant research. Step 5, create a new design based on findings. With the expertise of the UX design folks, they created a new design. So we decided to test our old design, which was this one, compared to the new design. And as you can see, the UX designers are incredible. So what they learned from all the process and everything we documented, they fixed in here. You know, that term ADR I used, now there's a definition of what is ADR. There's a term of how it works. There's actually a call to action to proceed from this page. So, you know, we went with that. And again, a UX design team that's strong and powerful is so recommended. So what we decided to do is we decided to conduct an A/B test for the study. Still, you can use preference testing, user interviews, surveys, prioritization matrix, SUS, diary studies, and more to validate the new design. So we A/B tested the old design with the new design. The result and winner were the new design. It actually didn't win by a small margin, but a considerable margin. We increased conversion rates by 700%. Bounce rate decreased from 61 to 18. Call center calls decreased 60% for this issue alone. And that's a huge number. And we cut the call center operational cost by $4 million just by fixing this one issue, since it was an issue that, you know, received a lot of calls to the call center. So I've shown you and proven the process works and can be used for any page or any usability fix. So as a UX researcher, I can unequivocally state that I can quantify the monetary return on investment of any usability issue. So if you have a current UX, you want to create something new, I can actually quantify the dollar amount you'll receive or won't receive from this. But the biggest fact right here is we increased transactions by $65 million a year on just one page. And, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, users don't make the user think. It's a Krug theory, right? Don't make the user think. Guide them through the whole process. You know, make sure it's easy and not difficult to use. So I wanted to show you about a follow-up study. As a UX research team, we decided to run an experiment on button color variation on a product detail page. Again, we went through the entire ROI rollout process, documented and validated this would be an excellent issue to proceed. We also jumped through every hoop conceivable with the business. We want to show that if we change the call to action buttons, like these new variations, we could increase transactions. The experiment details were as done. As you can see, we created different colored buttons for each of them. So the experience turned out so interesting, but the overwhelming winner was the green button. And we increased conversions by 487% on one product page. And as a follow-up note, it's not the actual color of the button, but rather the contrast of the button color to the background. And based on this analysis, the green button increased transactions by 94,000. We took the button color and integrated the call to action on the markets and regions websites. And the results were so big that, you know, we had to double recheck. First year, we increased transactions by $378 million just by a button color change. So there is no greater return on investment than perfecting UX on current digital sites. So how to go about this? So be the hero. There's a lot of people who probably will say this isn't their job, but they don't understand if anybody else is doing that. Some quick things to identify pages. Ask the UX design team. They have so much knowledge about the user. It's really incredible. If you don't have a UX designer, go with your hunch. And check the pages that you know are a terrible user experience. navigate to different sections and pages, and use analytics if you can. If you don't think it's a good user experience and you wouldn't find the page useful, then why would you think a user would find the page useful? So I'm going to click to the last screen because I know I've used up my 20 minutes, but you can be a hero. Again, there's no way this fails unless you do nothing. The value proposition to the customer and business is enormous, not to mention the benefit and education to all teams. This will serve as the definitive and documented guide and best practices for the current and future state. You can finally walk the customer obsession walk. And this is the only strategy that I've ever seen or come across that requires no development time in the initial phases, and nothing, and I mean nothing have I seen, increases user acquisition, brand loyalty, return frequency, and increased transaction and customer satisfaction. So the best part of this is you can do this. You can start looking now and start getting the answers. So thank you for giving me this time to show you briefly what a UX researcher can do and the enormous amount of value they can bring to the table while increasing the monetary ROI. If you have any questions, absolutely reach out and I'd be happy to explain anything. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Phil. Hey, we've got a little time for some Q&A. So the Q&A box is open. Those of you guys who have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. If you see a question you like, please upvote it so we can use that to help prioritize. We have just one question so far. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat, and I think a lot of people are probably feeling very excited about getting to see some of those metrics. Getting to say some of those ROI numbers is delightful for any of us working in this field, I know. All right, so let's see. We have a question from Julie who asks about the conversion, the example on the conversion rate, bounce rate, etc. How did you come up with the benchmarks to measure the successes?
Yeah, so my benchmark is basically the current state of the page. So my benchmark is currently those metrics in Google Analytics and the behavioral analytics to benchmark the experience. After we roll out the new design, we take a look at those metrics and we go back and see where we've improved and how we've improved. And we also do that with every touch point of the design. We'll do the usability testing, but that serves as our benchmark and our baseline, for proceeding with this. Awesome. Good question.
Yeah, benchmarks are so key for this. All right. Next question. Rachel asks, do you have a website?
Yeah, I do. It's philipburgess.net. No, it's Philip W. Burgess. No, it's Philip Burgess. philipburgess.net. Yeah. And please feel free to reach out. I'll provide any free information if you need it.
Brilliant. Yeah, and if you don't mind, for the folks who'd like to see that, maybe you can put it in the chat box so people can get to it more directly that way. That's great. Let's see the next one. All right. Lisa asks, do you use tools such as Hotjar to capture behavioral data?
Yeah, and one of the slides I showed with the behavioral analytics, that was actually Hotjar, and Hotjar is a very inexpensive tool. So
you said it's a very what tool?
Inexpensive tool.
Oh, inexpensive. Nice.
Break the bank.
Brilliant. Next up, Laura asks, these are great for e-commerce, web sales sites, things like that, but how do you measure ROI for enterprise software? How do these metrics translate in those environments?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same process, usability studies, conduct UX research, understand the current metrics. You conduct user interviews, A/B testing, preference testing, anywhere to get to a desired state. And every software has analytics in it.
Great. Yeah. It's the bottom line. It's a little more removed from the bottom line with enterprise software. You can't as easily say it's these dollars, right? So do what you can. Sometimes it's kind of a step removed from that, but that's not to say that those numbers don't matter or that people will ignore them. That's
absolutely
great. Let's see. We're getting more and more questions pouring in. Reminder to please upvote the questions because otherwise they just go kind of reverse chronological. I'm seeing some upvotes. All right. Craig asks, can you explain a little bit more about how you set targets for improving ROI?
Yeah. So we set the targets by looking at analytics and looking at poor performing usability pages. You don't have to have an analytics tool to do this, but you guys are brilliant, and you know what usability issues you have. I mean, if you think it's a usability issue, then go for it. But it's, I do look at the higher pages with a lot of traffic, like shopping cart, product page, the home page, the contact us now,
Hmm.
profile, my account, those pages. And those pages are pretty much assured that they'll be some of the top pages viewed on the site. Great question, Craig.
Awesome. We've got another question. How can we measure qualitative research methods into metrics to convey the importance of qualitative research in terms of the numbers to the business?
Yeah, so I got to tell you, the best method you can conduct is qualitative research.
Yeah.
And this is just due to the fact that the business loves to see users using the site. And any mention of problems that, their radar goes up, oh, this is so cool, that type of stuff. But, with the usability testing, of course, you can find recurring themes. We also use another tool to, analyze some of the findings, do sentiment analysis, that type of stuff. But by far, you have to usability test, but you have to validate with quantitative tools as well. It's great to
Yeah.
have a qualitative usability test, but to really be proficient and really take a good look at this, you want quantitative tools to validate that.
Awesome. Another question. Tiziana asks, have you ever used lower cost as an ROI kind of the thing that you're measuring, the objective of lowering costs?
Oh, 100%. So it's a twofold objective when we do this, especially on the page I showed you. Um, the call center, they have so much information on why users call. They have the top 10 reasons. And by us doing that and creating that new design and page, we reduced call center percent by 60% and reduced expenses, call center operational expenses by $4 million. This was such a big issue that it accounted for about 18% of all the call volume to the call center.
Awesome. If you see me making some faces, I'm a little confused by one of these questions. Someone has put their profile information into the Q&A, which is not a question. So I'll dismiss it. It's still there, I guess. I don't know, but I may be misinterpreting that. It didn't look like a question. So Julie asks, what do you do to get your new successful design? Did you complete ideation sessions that focused on your analytical research? Was there a structured process to get to the new design?
Yeah, great question. So what we do is we'll meet as a team and we'll discuss the findings. And the UX designers, the experts that they are, we'll discuss, how we should put stuff. We need a call to action button, but they're the real team that decides this. And for our first tests that we've done, we did a very fast turnaround time with the UX designers, but they understand the science of UX and placement. And for us, especially my company, scrolling is unheard of on any of the pages. I call it the dead zone below the second screen fold or the third. Nobody navigates through there. So we're conscious of we need the most valued real estate at the top of the page.
Awesome. Okay. So we are at the end of our time. There's a few other questions remaining, but thank you so much for your time today, Phil. This has been tremendous. I think a lot of us will be very inspired by all of these examples of numbers and getting to measure these metrics and show those metrics and show the value of this good work. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. And just know you're going to jump through a lot of political hoops in the
Yeah,
organization, ruffle some feathers. But thank you for having me.
yeah. Wise words there. Please give Phil a big shout out in the chat box. Remember to set it to everyone so we can all see each other. That's the closest we get to applause. Thanks so much, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you very much.